Andrew, you've announced you're standing down from Parliament. Is there any order in the reasons that you've made this decision?
Well, I think the overriding reason is that I'm very tired, physically and to some extent mentally. I mean, I'm not on the brink of a nervous breakdown, I hope, but you have to make a judgment when you're 60 whether or not you can bring the same energy and attention to a thing for another term that you've given in the past. And I prefer to finish on a high note rather than, sort of be falling down on the job. And so that's one reason why I'm going. And I always remember my hero, Harold Wilson. He shocked everybody by announcing his departure from frontline politics at 60 years of age, and that's what I am. I'm 60 now. So that's the position. That's why I made this decision. It's not an easy one, because every day I find exciting, and and I bring a lot of energy to it. But I've got to think about when I'm 62, 63, 64, and so on. The second point is, of course, there is a degree of frustration. I wouldn't say disillusionment, but Parliament, I've battled away there, and there are things like the Mackinlay case. This gentleman who, under this absurd treaty we have in the United States, we're about to extradite. And not only is it unfair to him, but it's a measure of how Parliament's never looked at this treaty. And secondly, when they were asked last week to invite the government to review it, send the government a message saying that Mackinlay shouldn't go, the Parliament ducked it, and through the whipping system this proposal was defeated. And that's happening too often. It happens every week, and I find this terribly frustrating. Let me give you another example. As you know, the present Prime Minister has appointed an enormous number of people who are unelected to be ministers in the House of Lords. I don't mind that so much, providing I've got access to them, to question them, to probe their stewardship of their departments in the House of Commons. I put forward a proposal last week that the government should invite a committee to examine the modalities, the practicalities of doing this, and again they defeated it. The people came out of the bars to vote against my proposition. Well, this happens time and time again, and there is a big, in my view, deficiency with Parliament. I've tried to alter it, but eventually you find yourself banging your head up against a brick wall, and it really is now time for others to address it. And if by talking to you about this at the moment of my decision to retire, I can draw attention to the fact that the Gary Mackinnon extradition is wrong, it's unjust to him. Secondly, it's a measure of how Parliament has never agreed to this treaty, and yet it's enacted. And thirdly, when you ask them to look at real reform, like being able to tackle these unelected ministers in the House of Lords, it's an issue which is ducked. I think this is an occasion when I can draw attention to these things.
But one of your other grievances, so to speak, is regarding the integrity of the House and the ability, I guess, going back to the police walking into the House of Commons, that they have had this power. Has that been one of your frustrations as well?
I found the Damien Green affair, this is an opponent of mine, a Conservative shadow minister, whose offices were searched by the police. Now, not only did I think that was wrong, what really upset me is that so many of my parliamentary colleagues couldn't see that this went to the heart of our democracy, the heart of our civil liberties. It was absolutely wrong. And we should have, Labour, Tory and Liberal, joined together in deprecating this invasion of a democratically elected member of Parliament's offices who was doing things in connection with his office as a Member of Parliament, not as a private individual. I don't want double standards of justice for members of Parliament, but this should never have happened. It's what people have gone to the Tower of London over to fight and champion this democracy. It's this principle which we've exported around the world, the Commonwealth countries, the United States of America. It relates to the Bill of Rights. This is not an archaic constitutional principle, it's a fundamental principle. And I was deeply depressed that other colleagues couldn't see how important this issue was and what an attack on our democracy it was. And that upset me greatly.
What will you hope that your constituents will remember you by?
Oh, well, look, it's been an enormous privilege and pleasure, and I've still got about 10 more months to go to represent Thurrock. I can't overstate the honour it has been. And of course, there are so many organisations and events which I attend which give me renewed strength. I mean, I'm in the constituency this afternoon visiting a great event here in Grays. I've been in Purfleet earlier, and I shall miss that and have great memories of the kindness and support I've received from ordinary people right across the political and social spectrum. And I hope to talk to YourThurrock about this again, because there are many tales and accolades I'd like to recognise over my 17, it will then be 18 years of parliamentary service. So it's been a wonderful challenge and opportunity to me, for which I'm very grateful. And of course, today is an example of how an MP, and it's not just me, are working all the time. I mean, what has been so irritating and depressing is the lie which has been peddled by so much of the media that somehow in parliamentary recesses MPs don't work. All I can say to you with hand on heart is that being a member of Parliament for Thurrock has been 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Many of the duties are very pleasurable, but because they do mean that you have physical and mental fatigue, that some of the things you'd like to do recreationally you cannot do. There's families which are neglected. Now, my wife has said I mustn't say, so I'm not going to say to it, spend more time with the family, because it's so trite. But of course, there are things you want to do. And there are things which are neglected, and I don't say this in a morbid way, but life is very short, and I think at 60 you've got the opportunity of doing some of the things which you wanted to do, both recreationally, and I want to return and emphasise this point, and in campaigning, because I'm not going to go away. There are a number of issues which I want to pursue, and I can pursue with vigour, renewed vigour, after I've had a rest outside of the House of Commons.
And finally, whoever succeeds you, what would you look for in the person that succeeds you as the MP for Thurrock?
Well, I think now there needs to be somebody who's demonstrably local, and I ought to pause there because there's a danger if I go beyond that. But the important thing is that the Thurrock Labour Party have an open contest, choose who they want. I will be an individual voter in that electoral college, but Thurrock needs somebody who's going to stand up for this borough in Parliament. He or she will be and can be entirely different from me, and probably give even more. I mean, I want them to have the best, and my style has been very unique to Mackinlay, and somebody else will come along and have a different way of demonstrating and fulfilling the duties of a member of Parliament, and I think that in itself is a good thing. You need change. Change can mean renewal of energy on behalf of the good people of this borough.